Islam and the path of Ahlul Bayt for a number of years, and has been critical and essential to Thaqalain TMA Muslim Association, which this event is jointly doing with many other groups, including the MYM as well, Path of Light, MYC, all the names that we, IJLM, all the names that we have mentioned so far. Please welcome him with a salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنما المؤمنون الذين آمنوا بالله ورسوله ثم لم يرتابوا وجاهدوا بأموالهم وأنفسهم في سبيل الله أولئك هم الصادقون. By the name of Allah, most compassionate, most merciful. The believers are only those who believe in Allah and His Apostle, then they doubt not, and struggle hard with their wealth and their lives in the way of Allah. They are the truthful ones. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah al-Husayn wa ala al-arwah allati hallat bifina'ik. Alaykum minni as-salam أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار. Peace be upon you, O Aba Abdullah al-Husayn, and upon the souls that mingled in death with you. Upon you all be peace eternally as long as I live and as long as the night and day persists. Dear brothers and sisters, Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What is Ashura? What is Karbala? On this great day and in this great place we find God Almighty, the greatest of painters and the best of composers, the greatest of playwrights, painting a picture and producing a drama that provides humanity with a supreme and unequal tragedy, a universal message transcending time and transcending place. Its actors are the greatest of archetypes, consisting of the spiritually uplifted and the materially anchored, the morally virtuous and the immorally decadent, martyr and tyrant, oppressed and oppressor, the loyal and the treacherous, followers of truth and followers of falsehood, the upholders of justice and the pillaging unjust, the aware, the negligent, the conscious, the indifferent, the liberated and the enslaved. Dear brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed in this epic tragedy a character in which each and every one of us can identify with. Infants and seniors, male and female, parents and children, but the dichotomy also splits along a different line, friend of Allah and foe of Allah. The question is, where do you find yourself? Which archetype represents you? Is it Umar ibn Sa'd, who found himself on that fine balance but tipped towards the dunya? Or is it Hur al-Riyahi, who found himself on that same fine balance but tipped towards the Akhirah? Is it Shim, that treacherous and drooling and barking hyena on the one end? Or is it Abbas, that selfless, loyal and majestic lion? Who is it that represents you? Tonight, dear brothers and sisters, I present to you Zuhair ibn al-Qayn al-Bajali, a veteran warrior and a tribal chief of Kufa. He lived in a time much like ours, which was steeped in confusion, and the propaganda machine was turning over time. He was an Uthmanid, a group that opposed Imam Ali alayhi salam and aligned itself with the Umayyads under the false pretext of avenging Uthman's murder. Alas, we find many as such today. Unable to discern between the party of truth and the party of falsehood, he found himself immersed in doubt. The truth was staring in his eye, but he cast away his glance, unable to face the realities of its implications. It is in this state that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam found him with an anguished soul and a turbulent mind. Yet he saw in him some goodly qualities that he could rescue by shining his radiant light into the abyss of his confusion. It is narrated in Al-Tabari, Abu Mikhnaf and other sources that a companion had said, "We were with Zuhair ibn al-Qayn al-Bajali when we came from Mecca. We were traveling alongside al-Hussein. However, there was nothing more hateful to us than that we accompanied him at every halting place. When al-Hussein traveled, Zuhair stayed behind. When al-Hussein halted, Zuhair would go ahead. One day we halted in a place in which we could not avoid stopping with him. Al-Hussein halted on one side of the road, and Zuhair halted on the other. And while we were sitting eating our food, a messenger of al-Hussein approached, greeting us, and entered our camp. He said, 'Zuhair ibn al-Qayn, Aba Abdullah al-Hussein ibn Ali has sent me to you to ask you to come to you.'" Brothers and sisters, now here is Imam al-Hussein, who on multiple occasions, instead of rallying his army to battle cries, would inform them of their impending massacre. His purpose was being to sift the wheat from the chaff. So why would he go out of his way to reach out to Zuhair? No doubt it was an act of compassion for him, but also it was to establish a prototype for those in similar position vis-a-vis the truth. The narrative continues that each of the men sat motionless. It was a woman, Dalham bin Amr, the wife of Zuhair, that snapped him to his feet. And that was the critical turning point. Does the son of the messenger of God send for you, and you aren't going to him? Glory be to God. Won't you go to him at least to hear what he has to say? And then you could leave him. There will come a time, my dear sisters, when you will have to play that role, throwing to your men that proverbial ice-cold bucket of water. What transpired then between Zuhair and Imam Hussein is unrecorded in history. But before long, Zuhair ibn al-Qayn returns with what is recorded as a bright, cheerful disposition. The Zuhair that had returned was not the same as the Zuhair that had left. No doubt that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam struck at his very core and left a deep impression. In those crucial moments, his destiny was forever rewritten. He ordered for his tent to be disassembled and his luggage gathered and traveled and transferred to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. He then turned to his wife, saying, "You are divorced. Go back to your family, for I do not want anything but good to befall you because of me." He tells his companions, "Whoever wants to follow me may do so, otherwise this is the end of our association." Now, contrast this with Ubaydullah ibn Hur al-Ju'fi, who was presented an identical situation. Doing his utmost to avoid the Imam, fate would have it that their paths would also cross. According to an account, the Imam sends a messenger to his tent who returns back with his excuses. "By God, I left Kufa with the sole purpose of avoiding the displeasure of being there with Hussein when Hussein would arrive. By God, I do not want to see him, nor do I want him to see me." The Imam then himself goes to see him and found his position unchanged and support lacking. Ubaydullah, unlike Zuhair, forever thereafter regretted his position. Again, dear brothers and sisters, where do you stand? Which archetype represents you? Now fast forward to the eve of Ashura, and let us see what the state of Zuhair ibn al-Qayn is, that once doubtful man. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam once again does his final sifting on the night before the battle. No exhortation to his followers to stand their ground. Instead he says, "Dear friends and kinsmen, I know that hardship and privations you have suffered in rallying to my side. Yazid and his men are after my blood, and if you decide to leave, they will be too happy to give you a safe passage out of Karbala. If you think I shall consider it a desertion and betrayal, in case you leave me now, let me assure you that I consider what you have already done for me enough to earn my gratitude and the pleasure of God." He then added, "Perhaps you may be feeling embarrassed to leave me like this. I am therefore putting out the lights so that in the dark nobody will know who has left me." Moments pass, not a stir in sound nor motion. He lights the candle once again, and according to an account finds all of his devoted friends and kinsmen standing silently with heads bent and tears flowing from their eyes. Some of them were old and bent with age, some of them were still young and in the prime of youth. No more sifting after this. Everyone left was of unquestionable faith. This is it. These are the men whose blood will eternally right this divine tragedy. These are the true Muslims who will save Islam. These are the glorious metals with the polish reflecting the divine attributes of their Lord. The silence is broken. Zuhair echoes the sentiments of his battle companions. "O Master, if I were to be killed and torn apart 1,000 times and then brought to life again, I would not abandon you." In another account, according to Tabari, Zuhair proclaims, "By God, if our world can be eternal and we can be immortal within it, and by helping and supporting you, we must abandon it, then we would still prefer going with you rather than staying in the world." How far has Zuhair come? When his joys as a warrior previously was to attain the booty of the dunya, and when his path intersected with Imam Hussein alayhi salam, his thoughts turned to the booty of the akhirah. Now look at Zuhair, unconcerned about the booty of this dunya or the akhirah. No longer is he moved by the fear of hell or the reward of paradise, but by the love for Allah and in service of his beloveds. Now let us turn to the day of Ashura. Zuhair is appointed to as a leader of the right flank, a testimony of his gallantry and confidence of the Imam in him. Time does not permit me to go into his exhortations to the opposing camp, abiding by that principle of dialogue. Suffice it to say that the Imam alayhi salam compared him to the faithful from the people of the Pharaoh, as one who did not too long ago would have stood amongst their ranks. He tries with no avail to give brotherly counsel and persuasion before the swords are drawn and the ties of brotherhood are severed. When intimidated with death, he responds, "By Allah, death with this party is dearer to me than life with yours." It has now become Dhuhr time, and this is the party of those who established the prayer. Zuhair was one of the companions who stood as a shield for the Imam and the other Musallin. What occurs next is a marvel for those who witness. These brave soldiers were moving side to side, not to dodge the arrows, but to receive them fully on their bodies to protect those engaged in prayer. Soon after prayer, Zuhair placed his hand on Imam's shoulder, referring to him as Al-Hadi Al-Mahdi. May we have such an opportunity in our lifetimes to say the same words. Seeking his permission to go to the battlefield, and upon being granted this permission, he enters the battlefield like a raging lion, reciting the following verses of poetry. أنا زهير وأنا ابن القين أذودكم بالسيف عن حسيني إن حسينا أحد السبطين من عترة البر التقي الزين ذاك رسول الله غير المين أضربكم ولا أرى من شين يا ليت نفسي قسمت قسمين. I am Zuhair, And I am the son of Qaini. With my sword I will drive you away from Husayni, for he is one of the grandsons of the Prophet, from a virtuous and chaste progeny. That he was the messenger of God, there is no lie. I shall fight you for that, I shall not apologize. I only wish that I can be divided twice. Tabari reports, he killed 120 in all from the enemy. 2 people of the enemy attacked him at the same time and killed him. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. When he fell to the ground, the Imam rushed to him. He looked down on him and he said, O Zuhair, may Allah reserve a place close to him and may he curse your enemies. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. The saga of Karbala is the saga of every individual human being. It is the very drama that takes place within our chest. In there is a Husayni, and in there is a Yazid. And so it is that every day, every being must participate in the sandstorm of the landscape within his or her own soul. Karbala is the sieve, sifting the person of faith from the person of material attachments. It is a patch of earth on multiple planes of existence that has seen the rise of men and the fall of men. Here the line in the sand runs long and deep, and everyone must determine which side of the line they fall. My dear brothers and sisters, Hal min Nasirin yansuruna, is there an aid who will come to our support, was not a call confined to a time and a place. Ya laytana kunna ma'akum, would that we were with you, is not a wish for the past, but a stance in the present and a hope for the future. These are universal calls that apply to us in the here and now. The question once again, where is it that you stand? Where is it that you find yourself in this meta-historical event? Which archetype represents you? Assalamu alaikum ya awliya Allahi wa ahibba'ih. Assalamu alaikum ya asfiya Allahi wa wadda'ih. Assalamu alaikum ya ansar dinillah. Assalamu alaikum ya ansar rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum ya ansar amir al-mu'minin. Assalamu alaikum ya ansar Fatima al-Zahra sayyidati nisa al-alamin. Assalamu alaikum ya ansar Abi Muhammad al-Hasan ibn Ali al-Zaki al-Nasih. Assalamu alaikum ya ansar Abi Abdullah al-Husayn. بأبي أنتم وأمي طبتم وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم وفزتم فوزا عظيما ويا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.